That's me recovering from the coronavirus. I survived, everybody. This is your host, Always Oneself, aka Gabriel Rocha. First and foremost, I want to apologize for us missing last week. I was deadly out dying with the coronavirus. To my left, we got technician Vic here. Vic, did you have corona?
No, I didn't.
He didn't, and we're still fucking alive.
Is that Howard Stern that does that?
Which one?
That does like the person just stops, like and they're very quiet.
Dude, I don't even fucking know.
I don't even know. I don't watch Howard Stern.
Yeah, fuck you, Howard Stern.
I'm a millennial. I don't watch.
Today's a very important day because we have a very important guest with us. You're probably wondering, who's the guest? Who's the guest? Well, before we get to that, the guest, they had a brilliant idea. Top streamline conscious. What was that?
We're getting to that right now.
See, fucking Gabe really did work it in. Before we do this, the crisp sounds. It's nice. It's clear. It's crisp.
Let me just say this real quick. We're about to do something exciting. It's going to be a little ASMR-ish.
Ooh, that is kind of sexy.
And it's going to sound so crisp because of Campana Sound.
Campana Sound.
Campana Sound.
Located in...
Beautiful. It's the Bay Area zone. And we got it right here. You know what it is. It is out in Albany. But yeah, shout out to our friends over there.
Shout out to Campana Sounds. Thank you.
But right now, let's go ahead and get into it.
Oh, fuck. He really did this like this.
So,
motherfucker.
me, myself, I'm a pescatarian. All right? I'm a pescatarian.
That's because he's pesky.
I'm a little pesky. But I've always wanted to try something. Thanks to our friend on YouTube. Vic pointed this video out first.
The food reviewer.
Food reviewer. I don't know if you checked it out.
No, I have not.
Nobody has, except us.
But how about this? We're going to try this delectable sandwich that does have some meat, but it has some donuts on it.
It does.
It has some chicken in between these two breaded, beautiful, glazed pieces of perfection. But I want you guys to bite into this.
Okay.
We got our friends behind the camera as well taking a bite.
It's still hot. It's still warm in here, boy.
It's a family affair.
It really is.
It's still warm. They gave me...
Oh, shit.
The other day when I did this, these motherfuckers didn't even give me the tissue paper. I had to go in it raw, boy. I had to go in raw.
That was a real cough.
I had to go in raw.
Okay, so...
look at Angel's going in raw.
As you heard, we got Angel here. Angel, go ahead and please eat some of this right now. I'm gonna give you some adjectives while you chew down on this.
Sure.
All right, so listeners at home, viewers at home,
I want to see. Look at his face.
We got a hip hop expert in the house.
I want to see what he thinks.
Someone very talented.
He loves donuts.
There's a reaction that he's giving us right now.
Shoot into the mic for me, dude. Oh, fuck.
My nipples.
What does ASMR stand for?
You know what?
Audio.
Let me see what he thinks. I thought it was really good.
This is a real reaction.
I thought it was real good.
Kind of tastes like shit.
For real?
But the donuts are really good.
Oh.
So I can see myself eating more.
There we go.
I've said that.
And the chicken is good. I'm not going to say that.
There's a couple times
I'm just not sure it pairs
when a
up
girl
well.
tasted like some wet nickels, and you're like, ew, this is gross. But you're
I've had a couple drinks, so it tastes really good.
I like this. Everyone, please put your hands together. Put your donuts down. Angel Warren.
Yay! Woo! Hey, shout out to Angel for cheering for himself.
Angel,
I've never seen that.
You have to be proud of yourself, and you are. Thank you for that. Angel, please continue to chew.
Hold
right
on.
now, I'm not finished with my adjectives for you.
Let me get it.
Someone very talented.
Let me get a little bite in.
Technician Vic, we need your sideline review right now. Please, while you chew, maybe even look into the camera. This is not sponsored by
this fucking thing, man.
It's not bad.
I
It's just
really like it.
This is not
It's not
sponsored by
great
KFC. But maybe in the future we will be sponsored by KFC.
It's great drunk food.
Good drunk food.
Yeah. I said it before. Anybody who knows me, I like the little bit of saltiness with the little bit of pepper in the chicken nugget. I like it complements the sweetness well. The donuts are a little fluffier today than the day I bought them. They were very flat.
I like that.
It's pretty, man, I got a bunch of glaze in my mustache.
I really did think it was a collaboration between KFC and Krispy Kreme.
I don't know why they did it.
I was like, oh man, it's Krispy Kreme donuts, man. It's going to be bomb.
You know, if they would have did that, I would have went to Krispy Kreme because these are pretty...
They're not that bad. I mean, like, I'm still
Like,
eating
if that
it,
camera
so it's
zooms in
good.
on my face, dude, I got all this cream on my face.
Cameraman, thumbs
Chris,
up or thumbs down?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Oh!
Okay. Sorry.
I'm defeated.
Yeah,
Angel,
take a bite
yeah,
of the donut.
Okay, let me take a little bite of this donut.
It's hella messy, dog.
Oh,
It is messy.
Gotta be
as hell.
careful.
Hella messy.
We need those
tastes more like a
coronavirus
churro.
Clorox wipes.
You know, it does kind of. Huh?
No, we need the Clorox wipes for the.
Oh, my man
coronavirus.
Gabriel had Corona next week, and we still eating that.
Yo,
We out
yeah,
here.
be careful biting that. But yo, let me be real before we get into it. Do you think this is kind of going off subject a little bit, but you think the corona? Okay, this is my theory. All right, please. I think the coronavirus already hit. Now let me say this.
Okay.
I think the coronavirus, right? So you know how it started in China or whatever, right? I think they knew about it for months before they said anything. Everyone was traveling around, right? It already spread, but the government was like, let's not say anything because we don't want to have like a, what's it called? Like a mass uproar, panic and shit. So I think it's already here. I think people have it already.
Yeah, bro.
It's already here.
Mm-hmm.
It's been documented. I don't think I love a good conspiracy theory, but I also think like it's basically just all hype. I mean, if you think about it, like we had like the bird flu,
SARS, swine flu.
It's like I
mad cow
never got
disease,
into. I've had a lot of viruses in my life. Corona is not one of them. I actually enjoy Coronas.
I like that. But Angel's here today. Listeners at home, viewers, that's a word.
Yeah.
Viewers, people watching, you know Angel's work. He's well known for his Eyegasms collection.
You know, I did want to say that too. I almost feel like, Shepherd Ferry behind Obey. I always feel like if somebody walks around Costco, where I work in San Leandro, they'll see a bunch of Eyegasm shit. And I don't think anybody would be all like, oh, that's the dude right there. Because the first time I saw Shepherd Ferry, I was like, no shit, that's the fucking guy behind Obey. Because it's such a brand is so strong that you don't know the person behind it. You know what I'm saying? Kanye West is Yeezys. Fucking, he named it after himself. You know that's him. So this.
I don't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead, dude.
Please.
But Shepherd Ferry is a real big influence for what I'm doing right now. It's so funny. Like, when you try and develop a brand, and this is quote unquote my brand, you want to build awareness. And the way that Obey started was he was just a street artist. And he'd put up like, these prints of Andre the Giant. And it wasn't even called Obey at the time. It was just like Andre's got a posse.
He got a posse.
And it was like, if you were a fan of his art, you would go to his website, download his stickers. You could post them anywhere, or you could actually blow it up big and post it up yourself throughout the streets. So he was a street artist. And I'm laughing because when I started Eyegasms, I thought like, what's the best way to promote this? And I wanted to be on social media, but I was like, nah, F that. You know what? I'm going to get guerrilla with this. I don't want anybody to know who I am, right?
Damn, okay.
So I was like, I'm just going to start. I started making stickers.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll just post stickers everywhere. I'll sticker bomb everywhere. And people will wonder, where are these stickers? And it'll have my handle on it. So maybe people will get to my Instagram. So of course, like, I made a bunch of stickers, started posting it everywhere. I sit back on my phone. I'm like, well, where's the followers? There's no followers.
It did not translate.
It just did not translate in 2014.
And this is a whole different, this is a different culture.
Yeah.
Back then, it was super cool. Like,
Yeah, it
and shit
really
like that.
was.
Nowadays,
So-
it's like you need all the exposure you can.
pretty much.
But you touched on it right now. Let's go ahead and get into it. You're talking about, doing some stickers, slapping some stuff up. You grew up in East Oakland, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You grew up in East Oakland, and then before we kind of get into your brand, your clothing, I want to kind of know what your upbringing was like, please.
Yeah, I kind of like stalled when you said East Oakland because it's so weird. Like, I feel like the concept of East Oakland is like, I'm a big hip hop fan, so like, of course I listen to Too Short, coming from Oakland. It was like, he said East Oakland, and you were like, am I a part of that? So I actually grew up around the Fruitvale district, more so around East 27th is my actual street where I grew up. And if you think about it, it kind of bleeds close to like the middle of where Oakland starts to veer towards downtown. So it's kind of like, is that part of East Oakland? East Oakland, and nowadays you have like deep East Oakland. So I mean, but I still claim it anyways. Growing up in Oakland, like, it's, I always, my brand, quote unquote, represents Oakland, even though it stands on itself. But I always think like since I'm injecting my personality into it, all of my personalities like was bred in Oakland. So my neighborhood, especially like growing up, I remember a time when Oakland was like completely different. I was not born during that time, but as I was coming up, it was like when it was like the crack era in Oakland.
Shit, yeah.
So you're talking like, 86, 87, 89, in my opinion, it could probably varies in terms of date. And like, it was like terrifying. Like, I remember being a kid and like, you'd play in the street cause you're just a kid. But even like, my parents, if we went to the supermarket, they're like, oh, we're going to leave you in the car. We're going to lock the doors. We're going to go in real quick. I would hide under the car seat because I would think like somebody was going to kidnap me, or like, like there's crackheads walking around, or, and also there was also like there was some magic to it too. When I reflect on it now, I knew who the drug dealers were. They had nice Adidas clothes.
You're like, wait a minute.
And like, like when I say it was magical is because, I really did get the opportunity to like just be free, even though, back then it was a different time in terms of parenting. My parents didn't tell me, hey, don't leave the porch. So of course we left the porch. I'd go play with my friends, sneak under, any kind of fence, get into places we weren't supposed to be, and probably saw stuff that we weren't supposed to see. But
you got any crazy stories of some stuff you saw?
Without diming anybody out, of course.
More traumatic. I mean, like,
if that's the way you want to go.
No, it's not like I thought it was magical because it felt like there was no rules. At the same time, I saw stuff that I don't think I should have saw.
If I could interrupt real quick, like our dad, he grew up in Alameda, but I think like a lot of his friends and shit were in Oakland, and he'd share stories where like just growing up, getting into I'll call like just mischief in Oakland, and kind of like there was this idea, and of course his era. My dad's 55, his era is before yours, but he would share stories about like just kind of shit you could kind of get away with in Oakland.
Well, I don't want to like bring down the podcast, but like one of the most like really like memories for me that kind of feels like, whoa. I remember, I don't know if we're going to talk about women, but the first time I ever saw a pair of breasts, like, and this is, I'm not trying to brag or anything.
That's a good story.
Like,
I'm already involved.
Literally, like, and Oakland's known for the pimp game, right? I literally seen a pimp beat up his trick or whatever, his women or whatever. Yeah. And like to a point where he was like tearing off her clothes. And so therefore her breasts were exposed. And you're talking about like a 5-year-old just staring like, what the fuck is that? Like,
wow. Well, even as an adult seeing that, cause I didn't grow up in Oakland, but times where I've been through it. I remember one time it looked like it was a pimp. I was driving by and he just like smacked this chick.
It's not that I knew that it was a pimp.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, even as an adult, it's like, what the fuck? But as a kid, I'm probably even stressed even more. Like, what the hell?
So, I mean, like, I can reflect on stories like that. Just weird situations that you just would normally not see in, like, I don't know, in a good neighborhood, you can say.
Yeah.
Like, guys getting in a fight in a basketball, after a basketball game, all of a sudden somebody pulls out a bat, like it's just like crazy.
That's the wrong sport.
So,
what are you doing with that?
To me, Oakland was like really dangerous, but as I got older, and I'm talking like older is like 10, 11, 12, and I have to start catching the bus at school, you felt like a bit empowered in the sense of like, okay, I know how to watch my back. I know for signs to look out. And I do think like in that sense, it's funny. It's like, I still live in Oakland. I raised my daughter in Oakland. And I always thought like, if I have a kid, like I want to raise her in Oakland because I want her to be street smart. Like my kid is like the complete opposite. She goes to a really nice school in Oakland. Like she's like really clueless if somebody's into it. Now she's kind of learning.
I heard she's a Star Wars fan too.
She's big time. Now that she's in junior high, she's kind of learning. Like okay, there's
you gotta learn the game
street
sooner or
kids
later.
mixed in here. Like but I've never seen that before. And I kind of coach her on it. I'm like, these guys, they're a little bit rough, but don't worry about it. You'll graduate, nice high school, or whatever.
You're gonna work at a nice job, and they'll be.
But to answer your original question, like yes, Oakland was a lot different when I was growing up, and it's a lot different now. I always kind of like, we used to joke when I was younger, like, oh man, I can't wait for Oakland to get gentrified, you know,
Yeah.
because then we're gonna have a nice neighborhood and this and that.
All the houses are going to be worth money now.
Yeah, like I can't claim Murder Dubs anymore because like Murder Dubs is like basically gentrified. So to see the transition, it's hard at times because you know the people that are being like pushed out or alienated in a certain way. At the same time, it's like, you know, I do feel like it's positive in the sense of like, you know, every city changes and evolves. And if I can draw back to the history of like my parents, you know, my parents, when their parents came to Oakland, like it was predominantly white.
Yeah.
You know, whereas, you know, over time, because of the working class and everything, it became, you know, predominantly Hispanic and black. So just to see that full transition, I know it's in a different way that people see as negative, but I just see it as like, this is how cities evolve. And I'm more than happy to be here, but I'm also want to be one of those people that's been here for a long time and like keep the culture going.
You know the history.
Yeah,
that's a big thing. Yeah, I remember mom talks about, because she went to school in San Leandro growing up. So mom's 56. She's a little bit before your time. But mom's like, yo, I was the only like Mexican kid in San Leandro school.
Yeah.
She's like, there's no other Mexican kids. And then dad went to school in Alameda. Dad was like, all the kids had sandwiches, and me and Uncle Gil would show up with our burritos and our beans.
Get
and he's
shit
like,
for it and
and
whatnot.
and he'd get his balls busted because it's like they all make fun of him because everybody's eating fucking sandwiches.
Well, we were talking earlier before the podcast about being like
That time
Mexican
doesn't
American
exist.
and not really knowing a whole lot of like Spanish. My Spanish is trash. But that really came from what that era was back then. So when my parents moved here, you were encouraged to learn English first. So like my mother, it's not like she's super fluent in Spanish.
Yeah,
So when
so-
she met my father, she's gonna speak English, and so I grew up speaking English.
That's how our dad's Spanish is terrible. I hope dad never listens. I'm so sorry. But dad's Spanish is really like I don't think I speak it very well, but I could guarantee that I speak it better than my dad.
Yeah.
And dad, he knows more, and he spoke with my grandma.
Yeah, like he
growing up.
understands it. He lived in Mexico. Our mom lived in Mexico for a number of years as well. And
And dad's like his accent is like the worst. It is the worst accent ever.
You know, like even my dad, he's from Mexico and he came here at a young age and he actually got sent back. But you know,
what is that with parents? Like my grandma sent mom. It's like, you fucked up.
he sent back,
Go to
back
motherfucking
and forth,
Mexico,
back and
boy.
forth. But even him, like, you know, and that's why I think Oakland's so magical. Like when he got here, it was like, you know, I'm into this. That's the way the attitude he had. And like, you know, around Oakland, he was kind of like the man, you know, even though he was like, quote unquote, an immigrant, like he totally adapted to the culture that was Oakland. And I think that's very like prevalent in people that did grow up there. At least I feel it in myself and what I do.
yeah. And if I could change the topic a little bit, because this is something that I think is really important to who you are and, you know, what you do in terms of, you know, your fashion as well as your art. But you mentioned around 11 or 12, you started taking the bus, kind of doing your thing. Is this around the time you started getting into hip hop?
Yeah, it actually is.
Hey, look at him. He's like, long ass bus rides alone. You gotta do
You're like, let me
something.
put on the Walkman.
It wasn't necessarily bus ride.
Was it that Walkman right there?
Nah, you know,
Like,
it was something like that. I owned a couple of those. They were literally Walkmans because you'd walk around. Yeah, like, you know, at that time, like, talking about like the drug dealers and this and that, like in Oakland, like they're all playing this music. Like, you know, I don't know if you guys seen the movie Do the Right Thing.
Nah,
Like
I have.
it's a hip
I know
hop
it's Spike-
staple by, you know,
but
Spike Lee.
Spike.
Anyways, this guy's carrying around a big boom box, right?
Carrying his ghetto blaster.
busting he's
Ghetto
busting
blaster.
Public Enemy. And that's kind of what it was. Like you knew who the drug dealers were because they had big boom boxes. They could afford the best stuff. And what were they blasting? They were blasting like, you know, funk, but they were also blasting this new thing called hip hop. And I just remember like hearing anything like,
you remember what era this was?
well, I'm going to say like this was around like 86, 87.
God
I
damn.
did not. I'm an older person. Okay, I'm an older guy.
Which I think you're the oldest
I mean,
on the podcast so far. Let's give him a round of applause. That's beautiful. Not
Like,
a lot of
let's
people
be
get
real.
touched. You're 40.
I'm 40. I just
My
turned
man
40
Angel's
in
40.
August. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. 'cause
Of course.
The shit that you're telling us right now, like you're hitting a demographic. My parents are too old to explain this to me.
Sure.
Me and Gabriel are too young to have experiences. So this is a cool niche. Like, my dad
Yeah.
doesn't know shit about hip hop, like, when it was first coming out.
Yeah.
'Cause that motherfucker was already too old. Like, he was already
He's
listening
more
to
into
fucking-
Zap.
Well, you
Roger
know,
and Zap. Fucking Parliament.
technically, like when I was hearing it, it had been out for a while.
That's
But
all right. I
I'm
still
just saying,
forgive
it
you.
was the first time I heard it, and I can't even say that I was into hip hop at that moment because I'm only like 6 years old. But what I was into was like breakdancing. I see these people breakdance. I'm like, man, I could do that. Like I used to jump off of trees. Like my parents tell a story that we had a couch that was next to the front door, and anybody who walked in the front door, I would jump on their back. You know, so I was just an active kid, and it was like, oh. Like I could kick my leg this, I could do spins on my head. Like I'm into that. So I used to break dance. And I don't know, but I assume from what the stories were told to me that I was really good for like 6 years old. Even
That's
to the
pretty
point
cool.
where one of my claim to fames was that at the Fruitvale Bar, they closed it down to do like a breakdance competition, right? And my dad took me to the event because he knew I was really into breakdance. And of course, one of the contestants did not show up. And they're calling out for this guy like, hey, where's contestant number 6? Contestant number 6. And I'm on my dad's shoulder and my dad's like, put my son up there. He's good. He's good. And everybody's
to your
like,
dad. That's hella cool.
Yeah, shout out to my dad.
Yeah, that's
so,
hella cool.
'cause my dad's a pretty loud guy. So I was like, he put me on the stage and, of course I froze up. I'm like 6 years old.
I got a
Yeah.
couple.
The
I,
guy-
I know somebody else who's frozen up a couple times.
Boom, boom.
The host comes up to me. He's like, hey, what's your name? I'm like, oh, my name's Angel. How old are
Did you have like a pop
6?
lock name or something? A little
I had no
breakdance name?
pop lock name at the time, but I will tell you this: the guy's like, I heard you're into breakdancing, and it's like a crowd of people in the parking lot.
Was that? You don't remember this?
I do remember it all. I just remember. Like, what are you asking? Like,
Wait, do you remember the situation? that you-
Yes. So-
Really? Were you fucking nervous, dude?
I was nervous as hell.
I mean,
Like,
you're
was just-
6. I'd
I'm
be
just
fucking
6,
I'd
right?
be like, what the fuck,
I'm blown
dude?
away. And so, like, I'm literally like, why did my dad put me on the stage? But for some reason, the guy was like, I heard you're good at breakdancing. I'm like, I'm okay. And like, I just stood there, and then I was like, the guy was like, DJ, drop the beat. And then all of a sudden I start doing the worm. Like nothing, and I'm like, who is this kid? And I was probably just like kicking my legs, being a little like
You're a kid,
6-year-old.
yeah.
That's B-boy revolution on the
crowd
stage,
went nuts,
dude.
and I knew like at that point I was like, okay, this is what I'm into. And so, of course,
hip-hop.
breakdance evolved into hip hop. And we were talking about like 11, 12 years old. That's fast forwarding to 6 years later, where obviously like hip hop was more about being in the national spotlight on MTV
Yeah.
or not even MTV, but like, there was records out. Not that I knew them all, but I was starting to discover stuff like, okay, like, especially Too Short, I'd get like back in the day we had cassettes.
Hell yeah.
And so if you couldn't afford the cassette, somebody would dub it for you. That means they would take a cassette, put it to a dual cassette and record it over. And like that was your life. You would play the same cassette over and over and over again. I remember listening to Too Short like nonstop. And to me, like that was the God. Like, that's the illest lyricist ever. And then you hear somebody like Rakim and it's like, what is this? Then you hear the Beastie Boys like, what is this? And it's just like, it was instant from there. It's just like I kept listening.
For you, and like obviously you're exposed to hip hop earlier on, was it something kind of like indie, underground, different, alien, or like growing up in Oakland that was the norm?
You know what? No, I think I can't really speak to that because I was so young.
Yeah.
I just knew that like I liked the Beastie Boys and they have a video on MTV. So that was like a big deal. I like Run DMC. They have a video on MTV. But when I got to about like 12 years old, you had like your rap 30 minutes a week. They had like a rap show that would be on BET or MTV. And that's where you would get all your hip hop knowledge or who's new, who's this and that. And I remember hearing people like Dell, right, come out. And I was like, man, that guy's from Oakland? Like, but he sounds different. He doesn't sound like Too Short. Or I'd hear people like Smith and Wesson at the time or Black Moon.
Were they on?
They were on MTV?
They were on MTV, but what I'm telling you was like 30 minutes a week. Yo, MTV Raps, this is your fix for the week. The rest of the week,
yeah.
it's all rock music, but we're going to put this little segment. So it's like you lived for that 30 minutes.
Wow.
And that's kind of like I was texting Vic earlier today. Like, I was trying to explain to him why. Like,
I was gonna say that, but I was like, I'll let Angel get to
yeah,
it.
like, Wu-Tang 36 Chambers, it came out in what, 92, 93? like I didn't hear it till like 95 because it was like back then you actually had to pay for the tape
Like,
or
borrow
catch
it
it
or
was like,
something.
He's like, if you didn't know it was good, why the fuck would you want to pay for it?
I heard
was
a
like,
couple
yeah.
singles. I was like, yeah, man, they're the shit, but like, I don't want to buy the whole tape. Man. I got choices between
I got
KRS
protect your neck on it.
One or So you'd buy the other tape, and if you catch a dub from somebody else, then you catch it late. But it was almost like time moved slower, so you were still on time.
Damn.
That was a little
That's
bit of
a
knowledge
sick
right
ass.
there.
Whoa,
Yo,
bro.
I like
Time
that.
moves slower, so you're still on time.
Boom, boom.
That's a sick ass bar. Did you steal that from like fucking Rakim, dude?
I don't know. I
That was
guess,
an
in my
Angel
past
Heart-
life, I was a rapper.
That was an
okay.
Angel Juarez original, boy.
Well, okay, so around this time, let's just say 12, 13, 14, who are you listening to?
Oh, I was definitely listening to hieroglyphics like
Damn, even that
Souls of
young?
Mischief. Like that's when they first came out. And to me, it was like I was definitely into like an East Coast flavor. And I was trying to explain again earlier to Vic that like back in the day, you had a West Coast sound and you had an East Coast sound. The Bay Area, like E40 and Too Short, like I said, I was already into them. It's kind of like they were considered part of the West Coast sound, but our West Coast sound was different than an LA West Coast sound. So you could listen to some East Coast music and nobody would judge you. But for the most part, it's like if you listen to East Coast rap in like 90, 92, 93, 95, like you were a weirdo. And so I'm telling you, it's like in my high school, there was like 4 of us weirdos and we all hung out. We all were like, oh, did you get
What's
this
up,
tape?
weirdo?
Did you get this tape? Whereas everybody, else had a Too Short tape or an E40 tape, and I loved them too. But I was just like, no, this is the shit because it was just different. And to me, like hip hop was more about like this is just fucking different, and it was about being original, not just the way that like the music and the samples I would hear. It would be the way that you dress. So I wouldn't necessarily wear like Chucks. I'd be like, oh, I got to get like these different ass Nikes or Adidas because that's what Run DMC has. And everything was very segmented back then in hip hop. And that's why there was an East Coast, West Coast beef in the mid 90s. That's just how people like, I don't know, they just kind of like separated themselves. I feel like with the infiltration of the internet and indies popping up and some of the major record labels starting to drop artists, when you got into the late 90s and 2000s, it kind of changed. And I feel for myself too, like even though I was kind of into like this underground sound, it became even more regional and underground. So that's when like, I got heavy into Living Legends. Hieroglyphics became independent. Stone's Throw, it originated in the Bay Area. And it was just a whole scene behind that. It's like you just kind of like, even though you could say hip hop raised me, I really did grow into certain scenes that were within hip hop, specifically here in the Bay Area.
Yeah, you mentioned right now too how like important, more so back in the day, that it was you had to have your own style for you. And you talked about this too right now, where like you had to have these specific Adidas or stand out. When did you start getting into fashion or clothes? I should say.
So, I don't know if we'll get to it with my business, but my sister was a big influence in my life, and you could say that like we're 2 years apart. She was like way like, if anything, in terms of like that East Coast sound, she was the one discovering different types of hip hop.
Was she older, younger?
She was 2 years older than me.
Okay.
And I said was because, my sister actually passed away in a car accident when she was 23. I was 21. So some time had passed, but I'm saying in general, as teenagers, I picked up a lot of fashion from her. And it was kind of like she was deep into this like hip hop game, if you want to say. And she knew how to move with the trends. So even when I was stuck into like my backpacker phase, she had already moved on to the Puff Daddy phase, and she was like,
electric signing
that big ass
suits.
puff jacket.
no, she was a real hip hop fan. Because now that I'm older, I'm like, I love me some Puff Daddy,
Yeah, you know what's to interrupt, sorry. I was watching something recently. They were talking about like back in like 97, to have like Biggie and shit, like I don't know, More Money, More Problems was
Yeah.
a little too poppy, so like people want to fuck with it in a sense.
Yeah.
But then nowadays, when you go back and have like that playlist of all the songs, you have to have that in there. It's
You
like,
know, I was the biggest Jay-Z hater. I shouldn't say this, but I'm drunk right now. But I was a Tupac hater too, because when Tupac came out,
okay.
like when he first came out, it was like, you know, he wrote this song, Brenda's Got a Baby. It was all conscious. And that was a movement in hip hop. It was very conscious in the early 90s. Then it started transitioning to like, you know, hey, we're about to make this money. And it was kind of like, it was good music. Don't get me wrong. And I didn't want to like it, but I sort of did.
Yeah.
But you know, like as I fast forward now and I'm 40 years old, when I look back and I think about like, okay, like, you know, I may not be the same complexion, but I came from the same era as some of these rappers, and whatever their struggles were, the point is you want to make it. You know, it's not about always selling out. It's about like, okay, I'm going to make something that's true to myself, but I'm going to make money while I'm at it. And what am I going to do with that money? I'm going to invest in my community. I'm going to invest in myself. And that's really where I'm at as a 40-year-old. And I hope like, you know, you guys are young. I know your minds will start to transition towards that, because I know it happened for me. So I mean, like really, like, you know, we're talking about like growing up with hip hop. It doesn't matter if like I hated it before, or what I don't like now. I realize that the culture itself will always push itself forward, and all I gotta do is just go along with the ride.
There you go.
was that what your sister's kind of helping you do? Was like kind of see the norm, but push it a little bit?
Yeah,
where you're
I kind of veered away with the fashion, but like, so basically, she was kind of into like whatever the fashion was going on then, which was baggy, which was like Polo, Ralph Lauren.
Hell yeah, Tommy Hilfiger.
Yeah, and like back then, you know, girls they dressed like guys.
Were
They-
people wearing Carl Kanai?
We were.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
I did not own any Carl Kanai, but I was very envious of anybody who did.
Yeah.
No, definitely cross colors was a big deal. You know, I remember going to Great America and like I had some like fake glasses on. I remember putting a condom like TLC, thinking I was cool. Like, you know, cool. What do I know about a
Fucking
condom at 12
style.
years old? You know, but you know,
Yeah,
that was the thing. You know,
Yeah, my Jimmy work.
yeah.
Fucking Angel. 12-year-old white girl. Yeah, I got this condom.
Yeah, walking around with a condom. And,
what's
and
up,
like,
girl?
and what was it? Suspenders, you know.
Oh, yo, those are kind of fresh though.
Yeah,
Suspenders are still dope.
overalls, yeah.
But okay, let's fast forward it to now. Then, like, what part of you were you in your life where you're like, you know what, I'm gonna go after designing?
Oh, so like, you know, man, everything goes back to my sister. She was a really good artist, phenomenal. And you know, like if you have an older sibling,
Technician Vic.
sometimes you feel
Yeah, yeah.
like you're living in their shadow. You know,
Absolutely.
Literally.
No,
I was gonna say literally though. You are bigger.
Gabe's, yeah, he lives in my shadow, but I figuratively live in his shadow. Ask anybody who knows me.
So I had some art skill, and but my sister was so phenomenal, and I just thought like, man, she's gonna be like this famous artist. And so I remember when she went to college, I was like, so what are you gonna study? Art? You know, because I don't know anything about college. Like I'm from like the inner city. No one teaches
College,
you
yeah.
what you should,
We didn't
you
know
know,
shit
what you
about
should
college
learn.
growing
Yeah, I still don't know.
So
shit
I
about
asked
college.
her. She said 2 words. She said graphic design. I was like, what is that? Like, what is that? So by the time I got into college, you know, all I remembered is like my sister studied graphic design.
You're
I'm gonna
like,
be a
"Well,
graphic
I know
designer.
what I'm gonna do."
I'm gonna be a graphic designer. And like, you know, I thought like it had some kind of attachment to art, which it does. It really does. It's rooted in art. But you know, it's kind of a bastardized degree, like in the sense of like anybody could do it. You don't really need to go to college for it. Granted, I got a when I went to college, I got the full degree where you do your GEs. It wasn't like an associate degree. So really,
Oh,
like
you got like a
the
degree.
full
Oh, wow.
Bachelor of Arts.
Wow, no
So
shit.
my graphic design aspect was like about this much in my college. But you know, the reason why I say that is because nowadays people ask me like, do you think, you know, I should send my kid to college, or do you think that's a good idea? And I always think it's a good idea in the sense of like, it's just a great experience to kind of like figure out what you want to do. Granted, I thought I wanted to be a graphic designer, and I still want to be, and I still do that as a living on the side. But really it's more so to kind of get a grounding in terms of like a general knowledge of everything. So, you know, there's plenty of people, they say, well, back then they said only 30% of people who graduate from college actually do something within their degree. So point is, you're showing dedication when you go to college. When you get the degree, you're showing that you started something from start to finish, and that's what you're presenting. You're presenting where you went to school. Like I did not go to
Basically,
Stanford. I did not go to Harvard, but you're presenting that I put in 4 years of work, that I can accomplish something, and I can see it through. So in that aspect, I don't think it was like
I never
a
thought
regret.
about college
Yeah.
like that, dude. And I dropped out like 3 times.
Well, you know, like
So
Hey, make it 4, dog.
yeah, here, baby.
Hey, drop out 5.
You can
make it
always
happen.
go back. I went back. So I come from a family where like education was really important. Like, so I honestly did not even know graduating high school. I didn't know college was an option. I thought it was just mandatory.
Really?
Like some
Oh,
people go like,
shit, not
okay, you
me.
go from kindergarten to grade 12. Like, no, my mother instilled in me like, you're going to college, you're doing this, you're going doing that, and so you know.
Well, shout out to your mom. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
shout out to
really-
my mom, shout out to my
it-
mom.
that's facts.
I'm
'cause
sorry. Are your parents first generation or second generation?
You could say my mother is, well, that's a loaded question. So my mother's side is, they're Latino, but they're Native American. So they're from New Mexico. They were Native Americans. When the Spaniards came in, they mixed with them, which used to be called mestizo. And then along the way, like that part of my family, they kind of like migrated to Oakland. So it's like, you know, who's to say if they're first, second, third generation?
Okay.
My dad definitely did come over here from Mexico, so I guess that makes him first generation, or I'm first generation born. I don't know
I think
how that
you
works.
would be first.
Yeah, I was just gonna say though, shout out to your mom for like really emphasizing education. Because I mean,
like you know, what's weird is like it did come from my mother, but honestly, it came from my grandfather and my grandparents. You know, they didn't have a full college education, but for whatever reason, they knew that they wanted their kids to have a really good education, so they put their 5 kids through Catholic school, and all their 5 kids went to college.
Damn.
And that was just by their own doing, by my grandfather and my grandmother, you know, really instilling that. And so that was something that meant a lot to my mother. And like I said, like growing up, I didn't know that it was an option. I would see people, I was going to college, and I would see like friends my age, and they already like had a contracting business, you know,
Damn, what the
laying
fuck?
up drywall. I'm like, damn, they're making bank. Like, what's going on here? Like, am I doing something wrong?
College is awesome though.
You know, yeah, so
I
it's
love
kind
it.
of
I
like,
worked
yeah.
at Chili's. But okay, so you do the college thing. You graduate, and how long afterwards you start designing? You start doing the eyegasms.
So that's a loaded question. Okay, so I graduate, right?
Yeah.
And I don't start designing. Like, you know, I did all these designs during college. And in a sense, like, college prepares you for the real world. I'm sure it does. But it also inflates your ego that you think like, okay, I got a degree, that I should just automatically get a really good job. So, you know, we were working at I was working at Costco. And I remember thinking too, like, man, I'm just gonna be here for like 2 years, right? Fast forward, I've been there for 20 years.
Fuck this. 10 years.
But,
under my
but really,
belt.
like,
You
you
get
know,
to hook people up.
Huh?
People listening right now, if they want
You
to
gonna
hook
get them
up.
a discount?
yeah, that's
Getting
the
that-
first thing asked. I don't
getting
get
that free
no
membership,
damn
dog.
discount. I'm trying to get to 25 years so I get free membership for life.
For real? That's
Yeah,
the thing?
25
That's
years.
the
Yeah,
thing.
you get
Yeah,
a free
that's the
membership
thing.
for life.
That's not bad. Just you, or do you get like extras with it?
No, I think just you. I don't know.
I don't know. I've never.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think I've ever met anybody.
Yeah,
Shit.
no, there's hella people.
Well,
in the back, yeah.
Jerry's, that's my old boss at 25.
Rocco,
I think it's
Krista.
30. Isn't it 30?
Hey, if they up that shit, I'm gone next year. Man. It's over
Okay.
now.
10 years, I can't make it.
No, but in terms of college and designing, like I would always get like jobs in terms of designing, but they never felt stable enough, especially to quit Costco. Like Costco, by that time, I'm like, man, I'm rolling. Like back then, I'm like, I'm making $13 an hour. That's a
I'm
lot of
fucking
money,
rich,
right?
dude.
Like yeah, and somebody's offered me a graphic design job for like $11 an hour. Yes, I am old. So it's kind of like it never made sense. But at the same time, while I worked at Costco, even to this day, I've always had like 2 jobs. Like, and that's probably like an Oakland thing. I'm just like a hustler. Like I'm always trying to make money. And money is like, it's not the end all be all to me, but it's very important. And so, you know, I have discussions with Vic outside of this podcast where I'm like, you know, you should put your money in like the stocks. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to claim that. And it's just stuff that I picked up on my own. And I think when I reflect back on it, like my college education, as much as like it was geared towards a career, it really geared me towards, you know, being explorative. And that's why I say college is important, because, you know, you may start with a certain degree and then end up with a different one. People do change majors. But it made me explorative, like, you know, what's economics? I never heard of that. Like, you know, let me take an economics class. So when I'm outside of that college arena, I still remember those things. I still educate myself by, you know, whatever, reading books or something that seems interesting. I pick up that topic and I get like immersed in it. I don't think I would have done that if it wasn't for college.
Damn, you kind of selling me to get more serious with it, because I'm in college at the moment. I'm trying to get in UC Berkeley.
Okay, yeah.
But
Dude, I might stop dropping out after this. This is encouraging me. I might stop it 4 times.
which is good, because okay, maybe my little counter view or whatever is like, I don't know. Growing up, I felt like college was a fucking monopoly. I still kind of feel like that.
Don't get me wrong, it is. So no, don't get me wrong.
You can't have both sides, Angel.
So I'm gonna give you the other end of the tale. So after I finished college, like, I kind of was like, man, like, you know, my BA isn't good enough, so now I need a master's, right? And that's great. That's great. I should have went for a master's, and I did go for a master's. But unfortunately for myself, I picked the wrong school. I still wanted to do art.
Victor Rocha.
So I went to art school. So I went to the Academy of Art, which is totally like a pay for, you know, monopoly kind of school, where it's like, let's get whoever we can in, have them pay the tuition. Yeah, we give them some resources. And to be honest, like, even though I never finished that degree, I do feel like I got a lot out of it. Like there was so many resources there. There were so many networks, and there was so much that I learned about design in terms of like how it really functions in the tech world. And this is before like tech really blew up in the Bay Area, because it did blow up when I was in college. And then, you guys young enough, but you remember the housing crisis?
Yeah.
So there was a time in 1990, before the housing crisis, 10 years earlier, there was a time that the Bay Area was bubbling, like 1998. Like, you'd be on college campus and, you know, this person would be like, I'm from folders.com. We're giving away free folders. Like, there was a .com for everything, right? And it was like, if you give away free shit, you'll become a millionaire because people will go to your website. So what happened over a span of a year and a half, they gave away so much free shit that all these angel investors, all these people that
Fucking
invested in these
dumb.
.coms, they lost a ton of money, and the whole .com
collapsed.
economy in the Bay Area crashed. So there was no tech.
That
You
was
know,
like the first. I think I remember. That's like the
this
first
is like
crash,
when
right?
MySpace existed. Okay, so it crashed.
I
It
had one
completely
of those.
crashed. It was its own crash here in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And so fast forward when I started going to art school to get my master's. I think that was like 2006, 2007. That's when Facebook was just starting. That's when, not even Instagram, Facebook, I think Twitter, a few
shit started to
of
pop.
these companies started to pop, and their business model changed. It wasn't about giving away free shit. It was about providing a service, and their content, instead of like, you know, hey, buy stuff from us, it was like, you guys interact with each other. And that's how social media started.
Bang bang.
So, and yeah, it was like, you know, man, when I was in grad school, I was like, damn, I'm about to be part of this tech industry. Man. It's about to blow up.
Cashing in, boy.
It didn't happen. I had a kid. And it was time to become a father, which was great because you know, we could get into that, but I really enjoy being a father. Yeah, so that was its own movement within itself. And I just feel like even that whole scene kind of prepared me for what I'm doing now, in the sense of like, you know, if I fast forward another couple years later, I ended up working for a .com outside of Costco. And that whole experience, like, I felt like as a graphic designer, I was like the bottom 5% of tech, but I was still in tech.
You had
and
a
it
foot in
was
the
really
door.
kind of like, okay, like this is what it's about. But when I say that, it was like not about like what my skill level was. It was about automation. It was about coding. It was about engineers. And it was like, you know what? I can't compete with this. And granted, I'm an artist, so I'm supposed to be doing art, not coding. But it really pushed me in the direction of like, you know what? Like, I don't want to like be part of this tech industry in the sense of like, you know, I could code. I'm smart enough to do it, but I don't really give a shit about that. I'd rather create something that people enjoy. And it was like, okay, I have this like concept that my sister developed. My sister started Igasms 20 years ago. But I was like, I could jump on that and I could start putting out my own art. And I don't fuck it. I don't want no one to hire me as a graphic designer. I want to put out my own stuff. And actually, to be honest, that's not completely true, because I felt like if I build some notoriety with this brand, maybe I'll get hired as a graphic designer somewhere. But
it's a giant resume.
Bastard.
But I did build the notoriety.
And then you kind of just started liking it.
I built the notoriety, and I was like, you know what? Like, I like being my own boss.
You're just trying to build your own cloud up.
Yeah. So I mean, like, when I look back at like my life, it's not over yet. When I look back at like, all those struggles that I dealt with during college, where I'm like, how come I'm not getting the job that I want? Why am I still at Costco? It all led me to this point. And when people tell you like trust the process, it's really cliche, and I hated it for a long time, but I get it now.
That's good. Yeah, that's good advice right there.
Fuck the process, dude. I'm trying to get straight to the top.
Where can I cut corners?
Yeah, I need to Mickey Mouse this shit.
I was gonna say, like, the bag, it's coined as home of the independent hustle. For you, it seems to be true. You got money on your mind and mind on your money, right?
Yeah.
For you, what game would you give?
God damn. There's always one part during every episode where Gabriel makes me stop and just like, what the fuck?
Well, what's funny is like you said that, and I kind of giggled because like my dad, he's met my dad. My dad's a nut, right? And so my dad's like on Instagram, and he's like,
I love it.
All his followers are like basically my followers. All my friends love my dad. So like he puts a picture today of him in his new car, and he's like, I got the sunroof open with my mind on my money, on my money. I'm like, oh damn,
dude, that's destiny right there.
How my dad pulled it? Yeah.
I saw that today, and that's why I said that.
Gabriel was stalking your Instagram, dude.
Yeah, shout out to your dad, dude. Well,
Shout
we're
out to
trying to
my
get him on the
dad.
show. That's why you're on here.
I was trying to coin this podcast, Don't Get Fired, Angel, but if you bring my dad on here, I might get fired.
Yeah, you're gonna call it Get Your Dad Hired, Angel.
But for you, what game would you have to share with listeners? It is a younger audience. Again, we're on YouTube this season now, so it's even younger. Like, what would you be able to share in terms of like on the entrepreneurship kind of angle?
You're asking him like, so what has he learned?
You know what? Like, I pretty much have the same advice you read all the time. It's like, you should have started it yesterday. Just start. It doesn't matter. Like, I've made so many mistakes, but when I look back at it, I'm like, oh shit, those mistakes actually worked out. Like, that led me to a better vendor or a printer for my shirts, or the design was better, or like I didn't like the fabric that it came out on. You just gotta get started on it and ask questions. Honestly, like when I started like Eyegasms, it really did come out of frustration. I was like, we talked about this, like, man, nobody's hiring me. Like, I present my portfolio, nobody cares about my artwork. Nobody cares about the graphic design that I do. And so I remember, I kind of went into a deep depression. I'm like, why am I at Costco? And like, I'm supposed to be an artist. I don't fit in here at Costco and this and that. And I remember I was trying to do like this introspective stuff, read books, and I read this quote from this graphic.
I like how you made it sound hella dorky. Fucking reading books, dude.
No, it really was. It really was dorky. It was dorky. But I'll say things like, not that I think all depression is the same, but I do think to a certain extent, depression can compound itself. So if I thought like I didn't get a certain job from a interview, I'm like, oh fuck, I didn't get that job, so I must not be good at art, right? And then I walk home and I'm like, I go home and I walk into my house, I'm like, oh man, I hate this house because like I wish I lived in a better neighborhood. If I had that job, I'd have more money.
I'd have moved out tomorrow.
For me, it was like starting this was like out of frustration and depression, in the sense of like when I started being introspective, I would read up a lot. And I remember reading this quote, and we talked about my early life. I started reading this quote from this graphic designer that I really respect. His name's David Carson. And I'm going to paraphrase the quote. Basically, it's like, nowadays, what you put out in the world is authentically you. So me as a designer, I may not be as good as the next guy, but whatever I put out is uniquely to me. Nobody came from my background. That's what he says. Nobody came from your background. Nobody had your parents. Nobody went through what you went through. So you like, when I put out this Eyegasms, like it's this eyeball character. It's supposed to be representative of Oakland. And what do? Like I also represent that I'm into hip hop. So I kind of mix the eyeball into some hip hop themes.
Get the Outcast.
Sometimes I do sports because I'm into sports, and that's how I kind of like finesse it. And really all it really was is putting my personality into it and seeing what will take. And lo and behold, you fast forward like 4 years later, it took. And I wouldn't have known that if I just had not done it. That's what I'm saying. If you got an idea out there, just start it and make the mistakes along the way. And I know that's super cliche because like I didn't want to believe in that. I hated that, but I made so many mistakes. I spent so much money, but it was like when people started buying stuff, even though, as a business, even though I was running at a deficit, I was like, whoa, they like my shit. Like no job that wanted to hire me cared about what I was doing. Damn. Like these big giant companies, they don't give a shit what I was doing, but somebody that bought it off me in the street, they're like, this is fucking dope. And I was like, I'm gonna run with that. And that was like the best feeling in the world. And, the more I kept, putting it out there and I like to be in front of people. I like to talk to people. But, at first presenting my art, I was really shy. And I really don't think my art's really that great. But the more I presented it, the more people were like, this is dope, dude. Like, do you have any more? I'm like, well, I do, but I guess I got to flesh it out and put it out. So, like, as a business, if you want to be an entrepreneur, and that was a weird concept too, when people used to tell me like, you're such an entrepreneur. And I was like, I have like 3 stickers in one shirt. What are you talking about? But the point is you start on something, you see what takes and you kind of run with it. And through the learning process and through asking questions, that's when I feel like you truly become an entrepreneur. And the whole point of being an entrepreneur is you're investing in yourself. And finally I invested in myself, and it really built a lot of confidence for me, to the point where it's like, I'm sitting in front of you guys and like, there's no fucks given. Like, I'm just kind of like, tell you what it is in terms of what I've encountered, and, like dealing with people. Like, I feel like I have a certain amount of confidence in myself and what I'm doing, that like what people think or say doesn't really faze me.
Are you comfortable sharing what's been, in your opinion, your worst design and your best design?
In terms of like my line right now?
Yeah.
The free shirts that I gave you guys.
You motherfucker.
You say your best design?
No, that's
that was the best one. That's why he gave it to us. That's why I was there.
No, you know what? They're all like children, they're all like babies, or it's like, like.
I mean, you say that, but my dad liked Gabriel more. So there's always a kid who like this is the motherfucker.
No, for me, it's kind of like, okay, so like I put some stuff out and I'm like, I don't get why that didn't hit. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like,
that's interesting.
I don't get that. I really like this design. I don't get why it didn't hit. Yet there's a discontinued shirt that I have, right? That was the first shirt I ever put out, and that hit like crazy. And
which one is it?
It was the one. So basically, like, it was when the Warriors were winning a lot of games. It was my Eyegasm character, and I had not even established a brand yet. I just had a couple like stickers with this eyeball character on it. So it was the eyeball carrying a W, and it said "Go Dubs," which is like, why would an eyeball be carrying a fucking W, right? You know what I mean?
Hard to see, it's just hella random.
Yeah, who knows? It's so random, but people love it.
Filipinos love it, though.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie.
Shout out
the Flip spotted it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Shout out to Steph Curry.
Yeah. And that one hit. And so it's kind of like,
it's so
and
random.
There's a reason why I didn't put it back out, because I didn't really care for it. And maybe I will put it out again, but it's just like, you can't predict what people will like.
Put on the eyeball shirt.
Do you have the eyeball shirt with the W?
No, basically.
That's
I did an A's version. I did a Niners version, a Rays version. Nobody gave a shit about anything but the Dubs, because the fucking Warriors were winning.
Put that shit out the year they lost to the Cavaliers. See how well it sold.
If I had like a favorite design,
is it the Trader one?
That's the one I'm most curious about.
I always felt like you liked. I always felt like Out of all the Eyegasm shit, the Trader one.
Well, let's break it down for the listeners.
Okay.
Trader, it's the Raider emblem or the outside the shield of
Sure.
the Raider with Al Davis's son,
Mark Davis.
and there is a lot of animosity towards him. I'm sure if you're a sports fan listening, you're aware of this.
And the main crux of it is he has a goofy bowl cut haircut. So it's like I drew him with a bowl cut. And then, and there's some scissors behind him and shit. And it says Trader. The way that came about, so it's kind of like, when I was talking to Victor and I was talking to when it comes to running a business and you start a business plan, I definitely had a vision for the business to go a certain way. Mm-hmm. And I'm still sticking to that plan. But you just never know where it's going to veer. And that's one of those situations where it veered right to the left. So, ultimately, I wanted to build this brand around an eyeball. But the eyeball is just significant of what my sister had started. She started this brand and I kind of carried her vision through. But ultimately, I wanted to get my art out, And so I would draw these different versions of the eyeball. And so the way the Trader one came about was had nothing to do with Eyegasms. I was like, I just want to draw this picture of the owner because it's gonna be the last season in Oakland. And I'm gonna make 2 shirts for me and my dad to wear the game.
That's really how it started.
Yeah, I was like, we're just gonna make 2 shirts, right? I had a friend bust out the 2 shirts. But when he posted, when he was making the shirts on his screen printing, he posted a story picture of it, and people started hitting him up. They blew up his Instagram. Where'd you get that shirt? I need it. And he was like, blood, I got 12 orders on deck if you want to make more. And I was like, yeah, sure, you can print it. And I still was not trying to bring it into the Eyegasms realm.
Yeah, it wasn't a thing.
I was like, just sell those separate. That'll fund my Eyegasms. And then I was just talking to a friend of mine, and I was telling him what was happening with this Trader shirt. And she was like, well, why don't you make that part of Eyegasms? I was like, well, because it's not really has nothing to do with the eyeball. She was like, but isn't Eyegasms your art? Everything you do is hand drawn. And I was like, she's like, did you hand draw that or not? I was like, yeah, I did. She's like, did you illustrate it? I'm like, yeah, I did. She's like, well, slap your logo on the back of that shit so I can sell it. So it became part of the whole realm. And that was like, you know what? Yes. From that point on, my business model became more of whatever I put out, whether it's me or other artists I collaborate with, it's got to be original art. And so it's it didn't matter if it had the eyeball or not. It was I drew this shit, you like it,
yeah.
And you're buying it now. And I really will say when it comes to starting a business and having a plan, always have a plan, but always go where it's going to take you. That shirt actually funded everything that I'm doing now. That was the impetus. So it was something that had nothing to do with Eyegasms, that when it took off, it was oh shit. This is giving me the money to print another shirt. And then when I made that other shirt, I made the other shirt out of having no confidence. I was I just want to put this out because I like it. But when I put it out, that one hit. And it became this momentum, and you start to have confidence. I'm okay, my art actually does work. And so everything started to steamroll after that.
Has Trader been the most successful shirt for you?
It actually hasn't. I thought it's probably the top 2. But the more that kind of weaned down, it kind of got overtaken by the one I was telling Victor about. So I have this other design that says welcome to Oakland. And it's basically the Oakland part. It's the body parts of the eyeball. I use them in a way to spell out Oakland. And even with that, I kind of thought nobody's going to get this because they don't know that it's the eyeball dissected, right? But I don't know. When I put it out, I just put it out too because I was I got extra money. I'll just put it out.
Fuck it.
People were this is the dopest shit ever. I don't know what that is, but I could tell it says Oakland. You use body parts. There's a tongue sticking out of it. Go to my website, you can see what it is.
There you go.
Yeah.
You get a chance to plug in.
Yeah, and that one pretty much has been the constant where I have to keep printing it over and over again. And then since then, I've kind of drifted more into hip hop themes where I took the Run DMC logo and spelled Oaktown. Cool. I took we were talking about Yo MTV Raps. I took that. I made it spell Yay Area. And to me, those are great. I'm proud of them, but they're kind of appropriated. You know what I mean? So like, you know, the designs I have the most pride out of are like, you know, the Trader, the Welcome to Oakland one. There's even a one called Hella Dulce where, you know, as a Mexican American, I was like, you know, I used to do these fairs, right? At first I had to get in front of it. I was like, I had to do these fairs, right? And I didn't know where to start, you know, like nobody knew who I was. So I had these friends that were like, hey, why don't you come to our fair? And, you know, it's all Latino culture. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't have no Hella Dulce at the time, right?
Yeah.
I just had my eyeball shit. And so I would go there and like, I'm looking at all the booths and I was like, Frida dolls, you know, Aztec calendars.
Same old shit you see at every like.
Yeah, and I'm
no
like,
offense, I'm Mexican.
No,
but,
I'm Mexican.
Bro,
but I'm
that's
like,
a lot of Frida and a lot
I'm
of.
like, I got this little eyeball, one of those like Oakland A's. The other one's like kind of like borderline hip hop. I'm like, man, this does not fit in. Like, why? Yes, I am Latino, but this does not fit in. And even through that, like, that started to really break down a lot of walls I had inside of me because, you know, we alluded to this earlier talking personally that like, you know, when I grew up, like, you know, I was very fair. Well, I'm still fair skinned. So everybody just assumed I was white. So I always had this weird feeling like, you know, am I really Mexican American? Am I really this? Am I really that? And I thought that's why I also gravitated to hip hop because it was like my own little pocket where I didn't have to like fit in with the Latino club. I could just be me. So when I put out this stuff and I'm at these Latino fairs and like all these Latino kids are coming up to me like, that's dope. I used to watch Yo MTV Raps back in the day. I'm like, what? But you're Mexican. How did you do that? You know, I really thought this stuff because I thought I was really in a bubble. And really what I discovered was like, there's so many kids out there or, you know, these adults now that like grew up the same way I did. And it took like starting this business to discover that. And that really built a lot of like self-confidence in me. So at that point, I was like, okay, I got to do something kind of like for my Mexican American culture, right? So I built this thing, but it has to like represent where I'm from. So I did this shirt called Hella Dulce, where it's like I did these bubble graffiti letters that say Hella, because we're from the town. And then Dulce, I just kind of like, I spelled it out, but I put the like, for the U, it's like a paleta melting. And I don't know, people just love that shit.
No,
too,
yeah,
you know?
I've seen that one as well as the Hello to Hello to Oakland with the eyegasms ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are fresh. So yeah.
Oh, thanks. I mean, like, I could talk all day, but basically, like, to answer your question again, it's like they're all very special to me. It's just like sometimes it's not as special as I want it to be, but then I have to appreciate the life that it's built for itself and provided, you know, moving forward.
Like that Eyegasms hat, Gabriel, the original one, the dad cap. Gabriel wears the shit. He has appropriated that to his own wardrobe now.
You know,
that
always hat? I actually didn't like it.
For real?
Because, you know, like most dad hats, the logo is sewn very small. So
you're right.
I wanted it sewn small. And the guy that I hired, so this is like one of the mistakes that I made along the way with these great mistakes, right? So I hired this guy that was from LA because I don't know anybody that makes hats. So I'm like, okay, some guy, he's in LA. I have him do it for me, right? And he was supposed to mail me the hats so I could start selling them at fairs. But like, I gave him my money. He showed me the proof. I'm like, damn, when am I gonna get my fucking hats? You know, it's taking forever, right? So lo and behold, I had to do a convention in LA. Like I was really trying to branch out Eyegasms way too early. But I was like, you know, I'm going to go take a trip down to LA, see what I could do, right? So I was telling the guy, I remember I was thinking like, man, do you think you'll have the hats when I'm in LA? And meanwhile, this is like 20 emails in. So I'm thinking like, I'm bothering this guy, right? He must be pissed off because his answers are really short.
Yeah.
I remember getting to the event. And I'm like trying to hunt down this guy because he was actually throwing the event too. He was one of the coordinators.
Oh, that motherfucker.
So I know he stressed the day of the event. But I'm like, yo,
yeah,
you got my hats?
money. You got my
hats,
shit,
you know?
motherfucker.
And it was like, you know, he's like, yeah, I got your hats. Just follow me here, right? And the event was like in this warehouse, and there's like 3 levels, and I feel like I'm walking from level to level, just following around like I'm being a pest. But I want pay my money, man. Where's my fucking hats, right? And I remember he was just like, take your fucking hats, right? And I was like, what? Then I look at the hat. Then I look at the hat, and the logo is like huge. I'm like, nah, man, I need this like small, because in my head I'm thinking like I want it small because like. I'm into fashion. I know, like,
the way it goes.
I'm like, this is way too fucking big. But I already paid my money. This guy gave my stuff, and I didn't want to cause more of a holler. So it's like, man, I just got to eat it. I got to live with it. And like, when I was talking about like happy mistakes, like, that's a hat that like I never liked, but like you like it. Other people who bought it like it. They're like, that's fresh. And they're like, the fact that the logo is so big, it stands out.
It kind of stands out more than a regular
it's like, I just sometimes like, I just throw caution to the wind. And that's what you got to do when you're running a business like this. You just got to throw caution to the wind, see what it does, and then improve upon it if, you feel you need to.
Thank you for that. Vic, what are we on time right now?
Hour and 4 minutes.
Damn.
Okay.
Damn.
Sorry.
No, are you going to cut me short?
We're going to cut you short right now. Let's go ahead and get into the hip hop quote, please. But Angel's a listener.
Angel's an avid listener.
Avid listener, thank you. For people at home, right now, we're getting to a segment. And by the way, Vic, I put the quote.
Oh, did you put it on
out? Yeah, we printed them out this week.
Oh, fancy.
Give me a second. So listeners at home.
Oh, do I take them?
Yeah, please.
It better not be no Lupe fiasco.
What's wrong with Lupe?
You don't like Lupe? We got
for real?
We got into a whole thing yesterday.
He's trash.
Early Lupe was good.
Told you.
Kick Push was all right.
Was that the single or
Kick Push?
Food and Liquor? That was from Food and Liquor, right? That's Food and Liquor's a good album. But I always heard like mixtape Lupe was the best.
This is a great quote.
Okay, but listeners at home,
this is a great quote.
If growing up, hip hop meant a lot to me, meant a lot to Angel, meant a lot to you, or meant a lot to a lot of people. Hoping you too, listener. But yeah, for us, hip hop, it kind of dealt with being alienated, but also kind of finding a community. Having some philosophy in there.
Having 4 friends who listen to East Coast hip hop with
be
you.
A little weird up and shit. But yeah, so we have a quote this week, please, Vic.
So today's quote comes from the incredible Amir, who is the main brain behind the hip hop page Rapping and Snacking. You can find him on IG and YouTube. I watched a couple of his videos. I've seen his posts on Instagram. He's super entertaining. If you're into hip hop, please check him out.
His collection's amazing.
Even if you're not into hip hop, check it out, because regular people are into Dr. Dre, regular people are into Biggie. So go check it out. It's pretty cool. His quote comes from the rap group Slaughterhouse, specifically Joe Budden on Truth or Truth Part 1. It goes, "You bought the music, not the nigga that made it."
Yeah. One more time.
Damn,
One more time.
You actually said that.
I said it.
Okay, all right.
I didn't quote myself.
No,
I can edit myself out later.
I'm not a part of that. I'm not getting fired.
Go ahead, Vic.
So it's Joe Budden again. He says, "You bought the music, not the nigga that made it."
Yeah, so you want to break that down for us, Angel?
I will break it down because I do.
What's your view on this?
I do love this quote, and I don't like Joe Budden, but I actually like have a lot of respect for him now that I watched his podcast and everything. Like, I do think he's really really smart. That's a lot. In terms of like we're all 3 of us or 4. Guy behind the camera, like we're hip hop fans. And really like. When I reflect on hip hop, like I'm speaking in terms of like fashion, the music, but honestly, it's just black culture. The same way that jazz was black culture, the same way that rock and roll was black culture. So it's saying like you bought the music, but you didn't adapt to the culture around you. And I don't want to say that like that wasn't the case for me, because obviously like I'm not black, but I totally adopted everything that hip hop provided for me, whether it was the people along with the people that I was growing up with, the people that shared the common interest. And I always recognized that as much as I loved it, that, culturally, like I was kind of like, I'm gonna use a quote from Lord Jamar from Brand Nubian, that I was a guest in this house of hip hop, which is like, that's what he says all the time. But basically he's saying you're a guest in black culture. And you have to respect it, and you have to respect the people that made it, and you have to respect the history that it comes from. And personally myself, I don't think I've ever taken that for granted, especially since I've promoted it so much and I've made it a big part of what I'm doing right now. Yes, I am Mexican American. Yes, I am a person of color, but ultimately, like, I'm drawing on, something that's bigger than that. Of people that, you know, although we're all making strides, that really, like, you know, need to be cherished and given their roses for what they've provided to American culture as a whole, but really in its essence is Black culture. And so it's like, you know, when he uses the N word, really what he's saying is like, you know, there's a lot of people out there like, yeah, you want the culture, but do you really want what comes with it? And to me, it's like, you know, I kind of feel like, not that it was conscious, but I always felt like I want to embrace it all.
And then Vic, can you please break down Amir's perception of it?
So Amir's analysis of it: fans and people alike believe that just because they like an artist's music or buy it, that the artist is all of a sudden indebted to them. With Joe Budden's line, as simple as it is, he is stating that fans buy his music, but in no way are they able to influence him. He is happy that he's able to share his music to the world, but at the same time, it's his life to live and his decisions to make.
Damn, I went a whole different way with that.
But that's the point of the segment, though. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure listeners have their own point of views, too.
I'm not Joe Budden. You're not. He's not. We don't have no idea if that might have been his intention the whole time. And we're just taking it. And Amir's taking it super literal, or we're taking it too abstract.
And that's the fun with lyrics, you know that.
Yeah. I agree, too. Yeah. It's like, that's how I look at maybe like your clothing line. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I paid for this, so I really like this, so you should do more of this. And you're like, yeah, that's cool. I don't want to fucking do that, dude. Like, that's not where I'm going with that.
Sure.
Yeah, there's like a difference between supporting and there's a difference between feeling entitled.
Yeah.
And I think we are in a culture nowadays where a lot of people do feel entitled to stuff. It always weirds me out if like I'm on Instagram and I'm like an artist, a musician posts a post about like they're working on new music, and then everyone's like, you need to have a song about this. You need to have a song about this. When's your stuff dropping? It's been so long. Like I guess you could say we miss you, but just when it gets to the point of like you're kind of stepping over a line, it's like, well, it's my art. This is my thing. Yeah, it's not your thing.
I agree. Like, you know, I guess in a way I go through that right now.
I can imagine.
There's a lot of stuff that I want to put out, and I've alluded to people like, oh, this is the direction I'm going to go, or this is the design that I have. But ultimately, like, there's a couple factors that takes a little bit longer to put it out. Is sometimes it's financially, but sometimes it's just a creative process, and I can't define that for somebody. Sometimes it's like, oh, I have this idea and it's really dope, I drew it already, but then over a month, like, that whole concept changes. I'm like, you know, that was dope what I did, but I should do this to tweak it. And then finally, that's what made it perfect. That's what got me to, you know, pull the trigger to put it out. Yeah, I could see where it's coming from. Like, you just want to advance as an artist.
Yeah.
Angel, thank you for being on today, man. Honestly, you're fantastic.
It's kind of a little bit of a last minute thing.
Thank you.
Thank you for my sandwich. I'm about to smash it.
Eat that motherfucker.
Please, before you do, please plug everything.
Oh yeah, plug everything, anything, please.
So my Instagram for my business is iGasmsArt. It's a funny name. Don't forget the second S.
Yeah, EYEGASMS art, iGasmsArt.
Please follow. I do have a personal account that we didn't write up there, but you know, if you follow that one and I like your pictures, I might follow you for my personal account.
To the right
like that. Yeah, honestly, thank you again.
Yeah.
You see,
appreciate it. You had a lot of game to share.
Yeah,
I think
got the hat.
Thank you.
Yeah,
also,
hats,
you hooked us up with some shirts today.
We
appreciate that.
So definitely, you know, check out my Instagram. The website address is on there. Check out the website address. Go to the website and see if there's anything you like. You don't necessarily have to purchase, but if you like it, I mean, you know, that's always an option. And also too, like, just because I have this website you can buy stuff from, like, I'm pretty accessible. So if you hit me on Instagram, you're like, hey, I really like this shirt, but you know, I don't want to pay the shipping. Well, you know what? I don't want to pay the fees that the place charges me for.
So that shit out of the
hit
post
me
office
directly and we can meet up.
People at home, please support the real, support Angel and iGasms. Honestly, some dope shit.
Please.
It's some dope shit. If you're not necessarily into the style, I'm sure you got a friend that is. Please pass the page along. Let them know what's up.
You know the drill. Appreciate that. Like, share, tell people. That's all we do. We're all just homegrown people trying to support each other. Mm-hmm. And as I guess it's the end of the ball game. If you're a fan of the show,
boom, boom.
Please help us out by simply clicking follow or subscribe. Even writing a comment would help tremendously. It takes less than 10 seconds unless you're very verbose like me.
You need a chicken sandwich, dog.
Also, you have a favorite hip hop quote. to share. DM the lyrics to Gabe or
Please.
I. Please. We're running out of lyrics. I can be found at Lord Technician Vic on Instagram. That's Technician Vic on motherfucking Twitter. Gabe could be found at Always Oneself on Instagram. Once again, that's Always Oneself on Instagram.
Yeah.
Shows edited by Campana Sound Company.
Campana!
Providing recording, editing, mixing, live sound services. Find them at campanasound.com. Please check them out.
It's not that good cold.
I know, you're supposed to eat it hot.
chicken
Now it's just
sandwich?
a cold donut and chicken
Yeah.
sandwich. And everybody, thank you for listening.
Unusual.
Thank you.